Hello everyone, this is Isha for Pinkfresh Studio. Today I'm sharing a fun one layer card using masking technique and a shaker card. I had a few questions on my recent shaker card with alphabets, so I decided to share the process with you here. For today's card, I am going to use the butterflies in bloom stamp set, coordinating dies along with the coordinating stencils. I'm also using the largest of the blanket stitched rectangle die. For the sentiment, sending you strength, I'm using the magnificent Magnolia stamp and dies. To create the shaker word high, I'm using the Jody Uppercase Alpha. To start, I will prepare the word high, place the H and I alphabets onto the craft mat. It's easy to align with the help of the vertical and horizontal lines of the mat grid lines. Once I am happy with the placement, I will add a masking tape over the letters and our word is ready. I have a white card which I placed on my stamping tool. Now I am positioning the stamp where I want. Before applying the ink, I am masking the two butterflies using post-it paper. Apply detail black ink to the stamp, remove the post-it paper and stamp onto the white panel. Notice I have put the word high to help me position the floral clusters. Here I am stamping twice to get a good impression. This is a big advantage of a stamp positioner. I'm using Altenew Stamp Wheel 2.0 here. If you have a MISTI, that would work as well. Since I didn't clean my stamp, I added a clear acetate sheet onto my panel. This is so we won't get any ink marks on the panel while we fiddle around with positioning the stamp how we like. Remove the acetate and the word dies. Once I am happy with the placement of the floral cluster, I pick the stamp with the acrylic plate, mask the stamp using post-it paper. Ink using black ink, remove the masking paper and stamp onto the card. In the similar way, I stamped the third cluster too. Now I am using the stencil number 1 onto the image. Mask the areas we don't want to ink using post-it paper. Now I am applying sparkling rose ink using the big 1-inch blending brush. I'm keeping this as a base color. The 1-inch brushes are good for the larger areas for a smooth blending result. I'm peeking in between just to see how much color I got on the flower. Next, I'm adding depth using Raspberry Bliss ink. Here I'm using the 1/2-inch blending brush. Always tap the brush to the side so we can remove the excess ink out from the brush. This is a good way to get a smoother blend. Finally, I am adding some passion fruit ink. This is to reduce slight brightness of the raspberry bliss ink. This is how we see various shades in nature too. Remove the stencil and in the similar way, I colored in all the three clusters from the stencil number 1. There is a lot of ink on my stencil where I tapped the brush, so I'm using the same ink from the stencil itself. Keep wiping the stencils in between using a cloth. For the stencil number 2, I am applying sparkling rose as the base color, and then using half-inch brush I am applying passion fruit ink to add some shadows. Keep wiping the stencil in between to avoid mixing of colors too much. I am removing the stencil a little bit to see if I have enough color onto the flower. Once this is done, I am taking raspberry bliss ink and lightly applying the whole image to match it to the colors we had on the first layer. I forgot to mention that I added post-it paper to the stencil edges. This is to keep the rest of the panel clean. In the similar way, I'm going to add color to all the three clusters. Next, I'm adding color to the yellow florals. I took stencil number 3, masked the areas using post-it paper, and then using half-inch brush, I'm applying sweet mustard ink over the image. Then to add depth, I am using marigold ink. I felt that there is a lot of sweet mustard ink onto my stencil, so wipe the stencil once and then continue with marigold ink. Remove the stencil and reposition its place onto the other flowers. I have sped up the ink sponging so the video won't be too long and you won't get bored. Next, we will be coloring our leaves. For that, I am using stencil number 4. I am adding fresh pear ink all over the stencil as my base color. Then I took some sparkling rose and added color to some of the areas. I am adding grassy knoll ink to give some bright, fresh green color to the leaves. Finally, I am adding olive ink to the leaf's base. This is to give depth to the leaves. I am going to color all the leaves in the same way. Now I will die cut some masks. I have this masking paper roll, but you can use a copy paper too. Apply a bit of temporary adhesive and mask over the 3 floral clusters. Here I am cutting the extra hanging part. Since I will be doing a lot of ink blending, I am applying some washi tape so the masks won't move. Now I am going to add color to the background, for which I am using a 1-inch blending brush with sky blue ink. Keep adding color till you feel you have enough color for the background. Next, I am taking summer shower ink and applying it more towards the mask in a round movement. I am going to take a peek now to see if there is enough color. Even if you feel the ink blending is not smooth in some places, let the ink dry. Pinkfresh inks become smoother once they dry. To add the depth, I am adding seaside ink using half-inch blending brush only to the edges of the mask. So this will give us a slightly darker color around the images. Now, when we die cut the mask using the dies, we will get a white outline around the stamped images. To finish, I am adding summer shower ink onto the whole panel. I am taking some white acrylic paint to add some splatters to the panel. Now the best fun part is to reveal the images. I am removing the masks to see the beautiful white outlined image. Next, I am putting my high word and I die cut it. At this stage, I decided to add texture to the card panel by using the blanket stitched rectangle die. This gives a beautiful and elegant look to the panel. I'm going to adhere the word to the card base. For that, I'm using masking tape to adhere the negative die cut panel to the card. This will help me with the correct placement of the letters on the card base. Here I am adding some liquid adhesive and then I am going to adhere the letters. Remove the panel and put a stamping block onto the letters. Meanwhile, we will work on our shaker panel. For that, turn the panel and here I am adhering double-sided tape around the letters. Remove the backing paper and adhere an acetate panel over it. Here I am showing you that this would look nice even without the shaker element. Simply apply 3D foam to the negative panel and adhere to the card base. Back to the shaker. I added 3D foam strips all around the letters. Now, make sure there are no spaces between the 3D foam. The glitter will come out and we don't want it everywhere. Add the glitter and some hard confetti. Here is my oops moment. I dropped a lot of confetti out of the tube. Never mind. I am removing the extra bits. Remove the backing paper and add another piece of acetate. This will give us the ease of turning the panel and adhering it to the card base to the exact position. Now I am adding some more 3D foam tape to the rest of the panel. Remove the backer and adhere the panel to the card base. Here I am going to stamp the sentiment onto a black piece of cardstock. Now I am brushing this with anti-static powder tool to avoid embossing powder to stick everywhere. I am applying Wow Clear Embossing ink to the sentiment and stamp to the paper. Next, I am going to sprinkle white embossing powder over it. Tap a little bit to remove the excess embossing powder. Heat set it using the heat tool. I die cut the sentiment using the coordinating die. I am going to adhere the sentiment to the card by using 3D foam tape. And to make sure the sentiment is straight, I am using a T ruler. This finishes my card for today. I have linked all the products in the description box in the YouTube. Thank you for being there with me. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification so to not miss any videos or tutorials. Thanks again and until next time, bye bye.